Governor Murphy, when you're ready.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us virtually. On screen with me, among other great leaders, are Acting Commissioner of the Department of Education, Dr. Angelica Allen McMillan, Senate Minority Leader Tom Kane Jr. We will be joined in a few minutes by Assemblywoman Verlena Reynolds Jackson. We also have Arlene Gardner, President of the Board of Directors at the New Jersey Center for Civic Education at Rutgers University. And we have one other special guest who I will introduce in just a moment. So today, in a few minutes, I'm going to sign into law a measure to ensure that every middle school student in our state takes a course in civics with a curriculum designed by the expert staff and scholars at the Center for Civic Education at Rutgers, who have been a longtime partner to many public schools in helping them craft civics education programs. The law will carry the name of Laura Wooten of Princeton, who served as an elections worker for 79 consecutive years, right up until her passing in 2019. She is believed to be the longest serving poll worker in American history. And this brings me to our very special guest, who I'll introduce in a couple of minutes. We are especially honored to be joined by Yvonne Hill, Laura Wooten's daughter. Yvonne, it's such a treat to have you with us. Thank you so much, and God bless your mom. Laura Wooten set a tremendous legacy of service. Even more importantly, her life, born in the segregated South, she persevered through sexism and racism, including right here in New Jersey. Her life stands as a reminder that change in a democracy ultimately comes not from those who hold elected office, but through the work of ordinary citizens. Laura Wooten's life is a study in civics. Her legacy lives on through Yvonne and the entire Wooten family. Currently, New Jersey is one of a minority of states which does not require our middle school students to study civics, leaving a gap between elementary school and high school, which we must fill. A deep dive by Angelica and her team at the Department of Education found that only 29 of the 522 school districts that serve middle schoolers, grades 6 through 8, offer a distinct course in civics education. While our statewide learning standards do require a discussion of civics under the broad banner of social studies, today we ensure that these lessons will stand above and apart. And this isn't about learning our system of government. It's not a lesson in political science or political history. At its core, civics has nothing to do necessarily with politics. Civics is about learning the responsibilities of citizenship. It's about understanding the vital role that every New Jerseyan plays in the future of their community, our state, and our nation. Civics is the ability to think critically for oneself about issues and ideas, and then advocating for what you believe in, as opposed to what we see too often today, where complex issues are boiled down to a bumper sticker. In many cases, we're even struggling for the facts that underpin them. Civics is learning that democracy doesn't just happen. Once started, a democracy must be maintained to survive. It must be nurtured. It must be tended to. And civics is how, among other things, big lies are countered with even bigger truths. As I mentioned, fewer than 30 of our school districts have standalone middle school courses in civics. In the overwhelming majority of middle schools, civics is essentially shoehorned into other parts of the social studies curriculum. But the teaching of civic responsibility isn't something that can be just left as a cursory note at the end of a discussion on current events, or as a footnote to a lesson on the 3 branches of government, or as an afterthought to geography, not when the future of our democracy is so vital and so vitally important. I'm moved by the words of my late friend, Roger Wilkins, whose Uncle Roy ran, of course, the NAACP for decades. Roger was one of our nation's preeminent historians, and he said, and I quote Roger, "I believe that somehow every student in every college of the United States ought to be taught fundamental lessons that say democracy is precious, democracy is perishable, democracy requires active attention, and that democracy requires hard work." Roger mentioned every student in every college, but in New Jersey, we're making sure these lessons are taught continuously from an early age, so that when our students reach adulthood, whether they go on to college, enter the workforce, or join our military, these fundamental lessons will resonate with them on a daily basis. And I would just note a couple of things in closing. First of all, this is a bipartisan initiative, and that's when we're the strongest in New Jersey. And I want to thank both Senator Kaine as well as Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson for being champions on this. Senator Shirley Turner wanted to join us. She couldn't, and I want to give her a shout out. Secondly, I grew up in a household with a dad who never made it out of high school, who made sure that my brother and my two sisters and I were prepared to be active participants in our community and in our society. The reason all four of us went to college was because of our mom, but every night around our dinner table was a lesson in civics and a discussion, and that was led by our dad. He taught us from a very early age that it wasn't enough to just be present. Picking up a newspaper while necessary wasn't sufficient. He taught us to be engaged in the moment, not as spectators, but as participants. And these lessons were never lost on any of them. With them clearly in mind, I am incredibly honored to sign this bill today. And I am incredibly honored, and then some, to introduce the daughter of Laura Wooten, the namesake of this new law. Please help me welcome Yvonne Hill. Yvonne, welcome. God bless your mom. I think we got to unmute you there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Absolutely, you sound great.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have to tell you, I am so excited that I'm actually nervous. And with that disclaimer, I'm going to ask you to please excuse me for reading from my remarks, because otherwise I'd be all over the place, because I have so many things to say and stories to tell about my mom. So good morning. I'm Yvonne Hill, Laura Wooten's daughter. I would like to thank everyone who worked so diligently in support of the Laura Wooten bill. My mother would be so honored to know that a bill would be passed recognizing her legacy of civic responsibility. She always felt that the youth should be involved in exercising the hard-fought right to vote and help make change. Her famous words were, "Don't say you can't make a difference. How can you make a difference if you don't vote?" Laura was born on December 19th, 1920. After graduating from Princeton High School in 1939, Laura walked off 14 Witherspoon Lane and into history by working the election polls for 79 consecutive years. She never expected any kind of honor or recognition because, as she often said, she was just doing what she felt was her civic duty. Laura strongly believed that everyone should exercise their right to vote, and she never failed to ask everyone she met, especially the students at Princeton University where she worked, if they were registered to vote and not to forget to go to the polls on election day. Laura was steadfast and determined to do her share in contributing to the voting process. There's a story I like to tell that demonstrates her tenacity. In November 2017, her brother passed away the day before elections. In her grief, Laura decided that she would not work the polls the next day. She called the election office and told them she would not be working, and also canceled her scheduled 4:30 a.m. ride to the polls. Later that evening, she left a message at the office that if they really needed her, she would come. The election office called back and left a message that said, yes, they needed her. Unable to reach anyone at 4 a.m. for a ride to the polls and not wanting to be late, Laura started walking. So at the age of 96, 1 month shy of 97, in pitch blackness, she walked from her home to her assigned location at the Lawrenceville Fire Station. So on behalf of the Wooten family, I would like to thank you again for honoring my mother. And I hope these words will give you some insight into the person and her character. Thank you so much.
Yvonne, that is an extraordinary story.
Yes, it is. And I have 100 more to tell.
God love her.
I was only given a couple of minutes.
I know all of us, everybody here joins me in saying how fitting how appropriate it is that this great law will bear your mom's name. And thank you so much for being with us. Means a lot. With that, let me welcome another terrific leader, the acting commissioner of the Department of Education, who's going to oversee this whole thing along with Rutgers to make sure this gets on the rails and is done right. And I know it will be. Please help me welcome Dr. Angelica Allen McMillan.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor Murphy, for the opportunity to participate in today's signing of Laura Wooten's law. Senator Turner, I know who was not with us this morning, and Senator Kane, Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson. It is an honor to always join you in celebrating New Jersey's work to build a stronger and fairer education system. To you and to all the other sponsors of this legislation, I share and appreciate your commitment to ensuring that New Jersey schools advance our students in developing the knowledge and skills for active citizenship. Ms. Hill, your mother's commitment to service is an inspiration. Ms. Gardner, thank you and your team at Rutgers for your efforts in furthering civic education in New Jersey. In June 2020, the State Board of Education adopted revised New Jersey student learning standards that require students to learn civics in elementary, middle, and high school. This legislation builds on that progress by specifying the elements of a high-quality civics course of study and promoting greater access to high-quality professional development as well as curricular resources. These supports will empower our educators to help students become informed, engaged members in the democratic process. The ever-present goal of education is to best prepare our students for their future by providing them with the knowledge and skills needed to achieve post-secondary success. This preparation includes allowing students to develop a curiosity about the society around them and their role in it, how they can effectuate change, and the importance of participating in democracy. Laura Wooten exemplified true civic engagement. Among other service to her community, Laura Wooten worked the local, primary, and general polls in New Jersey for 79 years. She holds the record as the longest continuously serving poll worker in the country. I am confident that this bill will elevate civics instruction around New Jersey. It will enable more students and schools to live up to the example set by its namesake. Thank you to the state legislature for passing this important legislation, to the governor for signing it, to our education community for embracing the importance of civics education, and to Laura Wooten for a lifetime of civic service to New Jersey and the country.
Thank you, Angelica. So well framed, and thank you for your leadership on this and so many other fronts. I believe that Verlina Reynolds Jackson, the outstanding Assemblywoman, is having technical difficulties. So I do want to again give her and Senator Shirley Turner a shout out in absentia. But with that, I mentioned that this was I mentioned two things at the end of my remarks. One is that this is bipartisan, and that's the way it should be and needs to be. And again, happily in New Jersey, that's the way it is. And secondly, I mentioned the influence. A lot of this discussion is about our parents. Yvonne talking about her mom. I talked about my dad, and I happen to know the next speaker's dad quite well, and they're all giants. So please help me welcome the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Tom Kane. Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for signing this bill, and also mentioning both of our sets of parents who were deeply and intimately involved in our own educations, as well as making sure that we all participate in our society in a very meaningful way. And by signing this piece of legislation, you are advancing, both your parents' inspirations, as well as Yvonne's mother's inspiration, my dad's and mom's inspiration as well. So thank you so much for signing this piece of legislation and for inviting me to this signing ceremony. Yvonne, your mom sounds incredible in terms of the passion, the dedication I will apologize for doing my part, meaning that I was the one who was one of my earliest bills was changing the voting hours from 7 a.m. to 6 a.m. So your mother had to get up an hour earlier when I was in the General Assembly. One of my first bills I was able to get through law. Alvio Series and I partnered on that when we were both members of the General Assembly to allow for the people who were commuting to get there at 6 a.m. And then one of the other bills I put through was a bill that allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to allow to participate in the polling with their parents and their school board's agreement, because I thought at the time that having high schoolers understand who was showing up at the polls, talking to the incredible people who are passionate, whether they were fellow poll workers or whether they were the citizens who came in, they could not only avail themselves of the opportunity to learn from their peers, but also to make sure that they could then go back to their fellow high school students that you have to register to vote, you have to participate, and being able to make sure that those 18 to 24-year-olds who don't normally vote as frequent as they should, but have that opportunity to learn and participate early and have that peer-to-peer education. And this piece of legislation that we worked on with Shirley Turner and so many others sort of builds on that legacy. We're able to have this peer-to-peer education, but also a structure to understand, as the governor said earlier, that civics is who we are as a society. It's who our legacy is. It's who our future is. And being able to make sure that we have a constant and structured civics education allows for individuals to have the tools to develop their own better futures, their own communities, their own knowledge base, and think critically of the issues impacting our society today and in the future as we continue to build upon our democracy. We are the only country that is founded on an idea, and being able to reaffirm that idea every single election cycle by participating and advocating and having our voices heard at the polls each and every day or each and every year is an incredibly important part of who we are as a society as we advance that common interest. And this civics education will allow for more middle school students to be able to be strong participants in that process. And there's no other person in addition to Yvonne's mom than Arlene Gardner, who has been an extraordinary, passionate educator. She's a constituent of mine, but she made sure that she was one of the earliest people who recognized what was missing in our education system, right? And so she's been a passionate advocate for well over a decade. And it's in part to her consistent advocacy to make sure this is being signed into law today. So I'd like to I know she's going to be speaking in a moment or two, but a person who is an incredibly strong advocate to make sure that civics education is happening throughout New Jersey is Arlene Gardner. And so I want to thank you, Governor, for signing this piece of legislation. Thank you again for having me, and the incredible importance of making sure that civics education is part of the New Jersey educational system for now going forward. Thank you.
Tom, thank you for your leadership on this and the other steps that you mentioned, and all the other areas that you lead so passionately on. Two quick comments before Arlene comes up to bat. Number one, we are a better state because of this. This is yet another notch in our belt, I think, as the state where folks look at us and say, you know what, that state is doing they're doing it the right way. Secondly, Yvonne will correct the record if she sees this differently. Apparently, there's no truth to the rumor that on that day that Laura was trudging to the polls at 4:30 in the morning that she was cursing you and Albio Sirius. Says no, that is an unfounded rumor. I want to say that for the record. But listen, all kidding aside, that was a great bill, because you had, as you rightfully point out, Tom, you have people who are commuting, who are working 12-hour shifts, who otherwise wouldn't have been able to vote. So hats off to you. Great to have you with us today as well. You gave Arlene Gardner the shout out she deserves. She's the Intel chip inside this machine who's going to make this really hum. Please help me welcome the president of the board of directors of the New Jersey Center for Civic Education at Rutgers University, Arlene Gardner. Arlene, take it away.
Thank you. I think I'm like overwhelmed by this love feast here. It's wonderful. It were always like this all the time. But really, Governor Murphy, thank you so much for signing this important legislation into law and for the inspirational comments. I could probably tell also wonderful stories about my father around the kitchen table at dinner. But in addition to the home, the other place where we learn to be citizens is in school. I think we all appreciate how critical teaching civics is to the continuation of our democracy. The new requirement for a civics course in New Jersey middle schools is a well thought out and carefully considered effort to address an educational and citizenship need. It's taken 12 years to have this bill passed. I'd like to thank all of the bill sponsors, but I really do need to especially thank Senator Turner, who isn't here, because she was relentless in pushing this bill through the legislative process. This was an idea by the entire social studies educational community. The Council for the Social Studies, the New Jersey Social Studies Supervisors Association, and particularly the League of Women Voters was very supportive of this bill for all 12 years. The legislation calls not just for old-fashioned civics about how government works, but as Governor Murphy suggested, it's more broadly, and this is right from the bill, quote, about the principles and ideals underlying the American system of constitutional democracy. The principles and ideas, why we're like this, not just how it works. The function and limitations of government, and especially is not in the bill, the role of a citizen in a democratic society. As president of the New Jersey Center for Civic Education at Rutgers University, I am both humbled and proud to be able to help in the implementation of this new course and in bringing New Jersey to the forefront of reimagining civic learning for the 21st century. So Governor Murphy, thank you again.
Arlene, thank you. We wouldn't be here literally without you. So thank you to all the folks who spoke and including Senator Turner and Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson in absentia. So here we go. This is the bill. I will read the synopsis. It's Senate Bill number 854 and 237. Again, you see Shirley Turner's name as a sponsor. You see Tom Kane's name as a sponsor. You see Verlina Reynolds Jackson as a sponsor. So I thank them and all the other sponsors. And the synopsis, which I always like to read: Laura Wooten's law requires civics instruction in middle school, authorizes New Jersey Center for Civic Education to provide curricula, professional development, and technical assistance for middle and high school civics. That's about as good as it gets. So let's get at it here, folks. I've got a pen box here. By the way, we'll get each and every one of your pens, and we'll show you that these are bona fide Phil Murphy official pens. I don't want anyone thinking that we cut any corners here. So pen number 1, not surprisingly, goes to Yvonne Hill. Yvonne, bless you and bless your mother. This one's for you. And again, we'll make sure we get this to you. Pen number 2, Senator Tom Kane. Tom, congratulations and well done. Number 3, to our cleanup hitter, Arlene Gardner. Arlene, thank you for everything you have done and will do to make this come to life. Dr. Angelica Allen McMillan, this pen's for you. Congratulations and thank you for your leadership. And then in absentia, we will make sure we get this one to Senator Shirley Turner. And last but not least, this pen to Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson. With that, I am happy and honored to say that this is now the law of the land. Thank you all. Tom, thank you. Yvonne, great meeting you, and God bless your mom. Angelica, Arlene, to everybody else out there watching, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, be responsible, and know that because of this law, New Jersey is a better state. Take care, everybody.